So now I would like to introduce our speaker, Breeda Miller. Breeda is our workforce retention strategist who works with our clients across the country to reduce that unnecessary employee turnover by bridging generational gaps and making managers more effective in their roles. So please welcome Breeda Miller.
Hey, Maggie. Thank
Hello,
you.
welcome.
Are you there? Yeah, hi. Thank you so much. I am so delighted to be here today. Well, this series is all about strategies to help you and your organization to attract and retain the very best talent. And we use this this acronym M.A.G.N.E.T to help you remember these areas of focus. And today I'm excited to share with you the fifth topic, but let's just review quickly what the other ones have been, because it's really important to keep these things in mind. So the first one, M for management effectiveness. Then we talked about attraction and recruiting, guidance upon entry, new staffing models. So we really are able to dissect and take apart each of the challenges that we all come across when it comes to not only retaining employees, but getting the right ones in the first place. And today, we're going to talk about empowered retention champions. I'm really excited about that. The last one that will be next time will be trust through transparency. So all of these different webinars build upon each other, and they're just designed to give you just some focus and some creative ideas and solutions that that everyone faces in this very, very challenging time. So let's just jump right into it, shall we? About the letter E, empowered champions. And it really is all about creativity, culture, and trust. So who owns it? Oftentimes, you know, it's called the blame game. And it can be really, really challenging. So who are the players when it comes to the blame game? I'm going to give you some different scenarios, some different conversations that may or may not have been actually said in your organization. You'll have to take a listen and see if this rings true for you. But here are the cast of characters. We have the senior leaders, we have HR, and we have management. And many, many times, here's the story that happens. Why can't it be like the good old days? You know, when staff just did what they're told, when they showed up on time, and when they had no cell phones, it was so much better. And when they didn't wear leggings. Have you heard those conversations? Have you heard people say those kinds of things and express that level of frustration? Well, specifically, let's see what senior leaders might have said. Have you heard this? You know, these turnover costs are just out of control. I mean, please, the money that we're spending on job posting, recruiting, training, and hiring, and holy overtime, Batman, this cannot continue. HR, fix this. Right. And then maybe you've heard HR come back with, "You got to be kidding me. Like, I have time to fix this problem? I mean, please, I am overloaded. I've got recruiting, I've got interviews, I've got onboarding, terminations, open enrollment, FMLA abuse, workers' comp, payroll, and emails up the wazoo." Right. The turnover here is not my fault. You know whose fault it is, don't you? Yeah, it's management. And then management chimes in. And this is what they say. Oh, yeah. Oh, just wait. Whoa. This is not my fault. You all don't give me the time or the tools to be successful. Come on, give me a break. I haven't received any training in how to reprimand these people in a way that isn't going to make them quit. Come on. I don't know how to deal with these millennials who don't think or work or act like anything like the rest of my team. I have my own job. I have my own workload that I have to do. I don't have time to hold hands all day long. I just need people who will come in and do their job, right? I mean, we're all understaffed. We get overloaded. And you know, and then there's those very special ones that go on a break and don't come back, right? It's a vicious cycle. And, you know, it's not my fault. Everybody says it's not their fault. So what are really some things that that you can think about? Well, let me back up just a wee bit here on this. Does this ring true? You can put a note in the chat if you like. Have you ever heard anybody in your organization say this? My favorite one is when the HR folks get so frustrated and they might say that, you know, it's not their fault because they're running off their good hires. They spend all this time and energy hiring the right people, and then managers don't know how to talk to them, or they're not training and properly mentoring the new hires. And then the saddest of all, folks who let the veterans eat the young. Yeah, it's a sad situation. But until we own it, until we figure out what really is the problem, we really can't fix it, can we? So how do we do that? How do we get out of the blame game and look for ways to be resourceful, creative, build some trust, and just get out of this vicious cycle? How do we do that? Well, let's talk about that. One of the most important things that we have to do is that we understand that before we can fix a problem, we really have to understand it. We have to diagnose the problem. Why are people quitting? Why do we have a retention issue? Why is this consuming our HR teams? Why is this such a problem? When you think about the time that is invested in finding the right people and recruiting them and then actually hiring them, to have them quit is just, it's a huge problem, and we need to find ways to do that. I think one of the most important things that we can do is to not assume, right? Because nothing good happens when you assume. I'm sure you've heard different ways to use that word, and it really isn't helpful. But we do make common assumptions about why people have quit, don't we? We just figure, well, maybe the managers think, well, they left because they got better pay somewhere else, or there were scheduling issues, or maybe there were family issues. And all of those things are external, aren't they? They had nothing, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. They just quit because they had all these other things going on. But when you ask questions and you do some research, you might be surprised. So there was a trucking company on the East Coast, and they had a problem with hiring new drivers. And then within a fairly short period of time, they would quit. It was a cement truck company. And this is transferable to many industries and many businesses. But this specific example, see how you can think it through and how it might fit your business. But when they surveyed drivers after they left the organization, or in the exit interviews, why they were leaving, they found out some pretty interesting things. They learned that there were no staff meetings and no communication. They were pretty much just said, here you go, here's the truck, good luck. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't, everyone, not everyone, but leadership or management just assumed that they would know the rules of the road, that they would understand the culture of the business. And they were not in the loop. They weren't included on key information that would help them feel really a part of the organization. Another thing was that they hated the fact that the organization used outdated hardware and software. They had come into this organization, happy and excited to start a new career, and then they were given equipment and tools that was just ancient. It was frustrating, and it was well below the level of experience that they had had elsewhere, and it didn't give them confidence or hope about the future of this company and the way it was run. The bosses were degrading and played favorites. I know it's hard to believe that that would happen in any organization, but it does. It does, and you can't ignore it, and you can't think that that does not have a direct impact on people not wanting to stay. It comes back to the whole idea of what is the culture of your organization? Do you know what it is? Is it important? And do you support a healthy and positive culture? Because if you don't, you're going to have the problem of, doesn't matter who you hire or how many candidates you have, if it's not a good place to be, they're just not going to stay. There are too many other opportunities and other options out there. The company does not care about my safety. Wow, that's a huge one. If you don't feel that the company is interested in your safety and making the investment in your safety in terms of equipment and training, is that a place that you're going to want to stay? I don't think so. They also learned that the dispatchers should have driving experience. Now, this is specific to this company that was dealing with cement trucks, but it is such a different experience when people hear and learn from leaders and managers that really understand their pain. They understand their frustrations. They understand what it means to have the pressure and the responsibilities that they have in that role. So it's really important that whoever the managers are or the leaders are, that they have experience in that job. They can really relate to their staff and their team. So when they come to them with questions or problems or challenges, they can speak to them in a way that is meaningful and, most importantly, really, really effective. And finally, the truck you got is, as a rookie, is a joke. Wow. How many people, how many organizations think that, well, you have to earn the good equipment. If you've been here a long time, then you're going to get the new truck. Then you're going to get the equipment that works all the time, or at least most of the time. But if you're brand new, you haven't earned that. You don't deserve that. So we're going to give you the oldest truck, the worst equipment, the stuff that you're going to have to work really hard to do your job because you don't have the best tools. Why wouldn't someone leave if that was their experience? So how does that translate to your business, your industry? Do you find that sometimes that the veterans are not welcoming to new, younger staff members? They don't embrace them? Are they threatened by them? Are they not willing to take the time to show them the ropes in a way that makes them feel that they are part of the organization and that they're valuable? Or rather, do they eat their young? Do they say, well, let's see how tough they are. We're gonna give them the business and then see if they can survive, and then they know they're part of the team. Can't do that. You can't do that if you're looking to build a culture, a team where people really want to not only come to work for you, but want to stay. So that's a really important to keep in mind. Okay, asking questions. Asking questions is probably the single most important way that you can find out what's really going on. When you ask questions, you're going to find 3 different avenues to follow. First are the low-hanging fruit, things that you can go for an easy win. You can find out, oh, I didn't know that was a problem. Because if you're not asking questions, you may not know what are some very basic situations that frustrate people that are an easy and inexpensive fix, and that can make all the difference in the world. The second thing you'll learn is you can, well, actually, the way you can respond to folks when they have questions and they tell you what their challenges are. There's the low-hanging fruit that you can address quickly and easily. There are, another way you can respond is to say, well, that's a longer term initiative. When people ask for something that you just can't deliver right away, but you can let them know you're aware of it, it's a longer term initiative. And then thirdly, and honestly, you can say, we can't do that at this time. And it's good to acknowledge it, to be honest, and not just give lip service to say, oh yeah, we're going to do that, when you have no intention of doing that or moving in that direction. To be honest is the way that you are able to build trust. So the way that you can find out these things, the way you can get this information is, there's a number of ways to do it. Is employee surveys is one, and you can decide whether those surveys are anonymous or people do sign them, and maybe even give them that option. Another way is to have a staff council. It's important to get input from your staff and to do it in a way that is across the organization. So think about that, is that who's on the staff council, not just your favorites, not just people that you know are going to tell you the things that you want to hear, but people from various departments, various levels of seniority, and various levels of expertise, different skill sets. I think that's that is a critical thing to help you learn to get the honest answers, to really understand what's going on. Town halls are another great way. Have a team meeting, have the entire staff there, as many as you're able to do, whether it's live or via video, and be there, be present, and respond to people's questions. Do it in the most honest and authentic way. That's certainly a way to build trust. Stay interviews. How about that? Now, stay interviews, we're gonna go into greater detail on the next webinar when we're talking about building trust, but stay interviews. Can you imagine if you were able to ask these questions and find out why people are staying at your organization, and not just wait till the ship has sailed and they are ready to leave and bolt for the door? It can really help build the culture that you want to have. So, empowered retention champions. What that really means is building a group of people that their mission is to be proactive, not just reactive, and to represent all levels and all areas of your organization, to build trust through communication and feedback. And it's important that that communication, that feedback provides a sense of safety, and that it's open. Who's in the room? When you have a group of people who are in a staff council, that it's important to realize that people need to feel that this group is trustworthy, and that they can be open and honest if you really want to get the scoop and find out what's going on, in order to help build this culture of retention within your organization. So maybe you've heard that people say, oh, we've hired so many people. What we need is another recruiter. Yeah, that's going to solve our problems, just because we just can't handle all the paperwork. We can't handle everything. Well, maybe not. Maybe there is another solution. This makes sense at first, but let's think about it a little bit deeper. Let's think about it in a little different way. When you look at the organizational chart, sure, it makes sense. You have leadership, you have all of these folks. It really seems like a reasonable solution just to add another recruiter to deal with the volume of work that involves to find and hire new people. It fits nice in the HR hierarchy. You know, we know what they do. They're a recruiter. It's a familiar job title. Makes sense to me, right? And you can justify it by the increase in applicants, to make sure that that the I's are dotted and that the T's are crossed. But it's a Band-Aid, really. It's a temporary solution to a problem that really, if you have a problem, if you have a retention issue, the problem is far deeper than simply the not being able to handle and deal with hiring new folks. So the idea that we're talking about is to create the role of a retention specialist. And this is something that is, we have a sample job description for you that you can access. But the job description of a retention specialist it's primarily to determine why people are leaving the organization, and to build relationships and initiatives that extend the employee tenure. You know, we talked about in early sessions that the life cycle of employees certainly has changed. There's very, very few organizations that people will stay 20 or 30 years. The turnover is much, the life is much shorter than that. So what can we do though to extend, to extend the time that people are staying within our organization? That really is what effective retention is all about. So you can, number one, create a retention task force. You can determine why people leave and why they stay. You can revamp the onboarding and training. You can develop retention initiatives and incentives. You can identify new advancement opportunities. You can empower employee brand in the community. And boy, is that important. Are there any companies or organizations in your community that you hear over and over again? People say, oh, I would love to work for them. Oh, if only I could get a job with them. That's their brand. That's their brand as an employer. And if you can develop that kind of positive brand where people want to work for you, that's more than half the game right there. And you can help create a better place to work. So the idea, if you remember when we talked about the blame game and how everyone was pointing the finger at the other to say it was management's responsibility or HR's problem or leadership, really it takes that blame game out. It just cuts it to the quick to say, here is someone who's going to focus on these very problems, who's going to be dedicated. Now, the thing is, you can decide whether that role is part-time or full-time, or maybe a combination. So then the question is, how do we make this happen? How do we sell this idea to our senior leaders? How do we get across that the solution is not maybe the traditional way of just hiring another recruiter, but actually creating this new role of a retention specialist? So I'll just spend a couple of minutes and talk about executive conversation strategies. Number one, managers know their people and their reality the best. So what you need to do is collect the group data and powerful example stories before you present this idea to senior leaders. Then you need to evaluate the political climate and be tactful. Timing, as in most things, is everything. And finally, make the business case and bring solutions. Explain the impact of turnover, productivity, quality, morale. Offer a plan for initiatives and training to improve the situation. Discuss the cost of doing business, labor and development, and then ask for what you need. Make the case, bring the information, say this is what we need to do and this is how we're going to solve the problem. So what is in your control? Well, perhaps you can build a task force that is really going to address these situations and get people to own these responsibilities, to understand when they have a mindset of blaming other people for problems that it is not the most productive and effective way. And perhaps you can find a way to make the case to create this new role or this position, either with existing staff members or hiring an additional person to fill this role specifically. So we want to talk about reviewing the M.A.G.N.E.T techniques and ideas that we've talked about. And a couple of them that are important is to understand that employees really want, we want to understand that employees' expectations to build a place where people want to work. If you are able to do that, you're going to have more applicants than you need to fill the positions that you have to fill. And then more importantly, when people want to work with you, they're going to want to stay there. And that is really the essence of what we're talking about. So how could you possibly do this? One thing you can do is you can block out some time, perhaps call it Fix It Fridays. Schedule blocks of time dedicated to addressing this, to make improvements, to look at your organization objectively, look and see where the leaks are. look and see where the problems are. Is there a specific team or a specific department that seems to have the same problem over and over again? Perhaps you can take some dedicated time and to focus on fixing it. And that's a hard thing to do, because there are certainly plenty of things that are just screaming for your time and your attention. But if you can block out that time, maybe it's an hour or 2 hours every Friday, and you're looking at being proactive rather than being reactive. So the M.A.G.N.E.T strategies, they are really, really helpful. Let's just go over them again. Management effectiveness. It is all about making sure that the tactics that you're using, the strategies, are in fact effective. Attraction and recruiting. Finding the right people, attracting them to you by your brand or your techniques, your awareness, and people getting out there knowing who you are and the kinds of roles that are and opportunities that exist. Guidance upon entry. Make sure your onboarding experience is one that is really positive and helpful, and that will enhance the opportunity for people to stay with your organization and to be effective as soon as possible. A new staffing model, ways to engage the staff and to be creative and perhaps be a bit more flexible than you've been in the past. And today, what we talked about, empowered champions. How do you empower your staff to be retention champions? And the next webinar, and our final one in this series, is trust through transparency. So those are really important things that we've talked about. Maggie, do we have any questions in our chat? Maggie, I think you're on mute. I'm not hearing you.
Thank you, Breeda.
Okay.
Yes, we have a few questions, and feel free if you are wondering about something. We have time for a few more questions than the ones we have now. So feel free to hop on that Q&A button and we will get your questions answered. So the first question for you, Breeda, is you mentioned the retention task force. Can you tell us more about who should be on it, how many people should be included, and how often you should meet?
Oh, that is a terrific question. Thank you, Maggie. So let me just say that from my experience, I've been in several organizations, and some have done this really well and others not so much. And let me talk about the organization that did not do it very well. They had a pretty poor morale situation. And it was frustrating because there was an awful lot of really talented people, and the senior leadership was just on another plane. They were on another planet, I don't know, but people were not feeling heard, or they did not feel that they were being respected or honored. So they hired an external company to come in and help them. And one of the things they decided to do was to do a staff council. But the error in judgment they made was when they assembled the staff council, they chose people that would basically tell them what they wanted to hear. And they chose senior leadership only. They didn't go in a vertical way to get folks who are really going to be able to make a difference, who are going to be able to support the team and to do what needs to be done. Yeah. In a really effective way. And that's an important thing to keep in mind here. Sorry. So it's important to be vertical so that everyone feels that they have a voice. And secondly, that this is a trustworthy environment. Basically, what goes on in the room stays in the room, so that people can feel that they are heard. So the positive and proactive way to build a staff council is to make sure that you get a vertical slice of the team. People from a variety of different disciplines, and also not just senior folks, not people who have earned the right to be on this staff council, but maybe someone who's only been there a very short time, because their fresh eyes and their perspective about what they see and how they perceive the company could really be an eye-opener for folks. So it's important. And then in terms of the frequency, if you don't meet often enough, you really lose any kind of sense of urgency or traction. Some organizations think, well, you know, once a year we do it, that's good. or they think, oh, once a quarter, we're just going to meet once a quarter and do it seasonally. Really, to be effective, it about once a month is best practices for having a staff council. So again, folks from a range of teams within the organization, different professions, different levels of skills, and then different levels of seniority as well, to make sure you include younger folks, not necessarily younger, but newer hires, people not hired by, you're not choosing them by their age or their demo or anything like that, but rather how long have they been with the organization. And then those folks who have that institutional knowledge are invaluable. You want to make sure you have those senior folks on there as well.
That's great. Thank you, Breeda. Our last question, unless anybody else has another one, is the person said, I love the idea of creating a retention specialist role, but how am I supposed to get my executives to approve that type of position and its funding?
Exactly. And that is a huge challenge. Here you have this creative, different idea, and now you need to go up to senior leadership and say, okay, we have all these problems, we have these challenges. How are we going to make this happen? And as I stated just really briefly in this little short webinar, but we do, our organization will help you do this. But one of the important things is to think about, you need to make the case. You need to have your data. You need to have to understand when you're speaking to senior leadership, here's a problem. We know this is a problem. And you're laying out the data to say, here's how much it's costing us. Here's how much time it's costing us. This has to do with quality control. It impacts our reputation, not only to our clients and our customers, if they constantly have a new person that they're dealing with, but internally, the retraining, just the fact that people are here, they're gone, it just is a really negative environment. It's really important. But if we can find a way to have someone who is dedicated to solving this problem and can show how this is going to create a more positive environment and really solve problems. Because if we keep doing it the way we've always been doing it, it's not going to move forward in a positive way. And I think that's something that we know to be true. And if HR is pointing the fingers and blaming management for not doing the right things about training people and being supportive, and if management is saying, hey, HR is sending us the wrong people, it's their fault. Everybody's blaming each other. But if we can have someone to come in who is more neutral, perhaps, or is really dedicated to solving this problem, it takes the pressure off these other groups and really can really set you up for success. So the other point is about timing, that find the right time to bring this up to leadership so that they can be in the position to say yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you to all who have attended today's webinar. Our next and last webinar of this series is part 6, which, like Breeda mentioned, is Trust Through Transparency. And you can register there at magnetwebinars.com. Also, I did a little teaser at the beginning, but I'll give you more information on joining our mailing list now. I'm going to put that in the chat box. So it won't be in the Q&A, it'll be in the chat box. You can go to that link and sign up for our mailing list. And everybody on that list will be notified very soon about our new products. And I'm going to tell you what it is. So many of you probably know and love our Workforce Retention Bootcamp, which is our most requested program that gets the best results for our clients, that we have helped companies all across the country get results, reduce the turnover, help the bottom line, all these things with our Workforce Retention Bootcamp. And so our newest program is going to be an online course of our Workforce Retention Bootcamp. So if you have managers that are stuck at home and need some training right now, this is a great opportunity. You'll get more information about this if you join our mailing list. Like I said, you will be getting the information first, and you will also be getting a special offer that will only be for the people on that list. So you definitely want to join there, and you'll be getting that, like I said, within the next week. So feel free to join there. You can also get Cara's book like you see on the screen there at Amazon. And if you want bulk pricing for that, feel free to reach out. This is a great tool to use for management, book club type of programs. And we also have a YouTube page where you can see playbacks of webinars and also other content that you can share with people, and of course, LinkedIn and Twitter. So thank you again for joining us. Feel free, the link is in the chat bar there. Feel free to sign up and you'll be getting an email from us soon with that online course information. Thank you again, Breeda. You have really educated us today, so we appreciate your time. And thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, which is on May 13th.